What you got?
Well, hello, friends. Hello again. And we continue our tour of Nibiru and its many effects on the Earth. Next slide, please. Okay, now we showed this last week, and this is to date the best photo we've had of Nibiru. We can see Nibiru in the middle and the two dominant moons on either side, and then the double helix tail. This is what the authorities, the establishment, are desperately scared of, namely the common person actually looking up in the sky and seeing this thing and taking photos of it, because they've been covering this up for the last 30, 35 years. So it's a big problem for them. Next slide, please. We're going to talk in this first part of the lecture about some very interesting phenomena that have been seen in different parts of the world. Now, you might remember that in 2009, we got photos of this blue spiral emerging from a swirl in the sky. It was taken over the skies of Norway. When I first saw it, I thought it was a secret weapon of some kind. But Zetatalk later explained it to be related to Nibiru. Now, the official version of the authorities' establishment, they blamed it on a Russian test rocket. But of course, that is highly dubious. Now, here's the Zetatalk explanation from a quote from them. What has occurred over Norway is a neon cloud, a grease cloud, lit by the electrical charge from the tail of Planet X. Planet X is Nibiru. Next slide, please. Okay, that was 2009. And guess what? Recently, we have seen similar blue spirals in a number of different countries. In the skies of Poland, Hungary, Britain, and Wales, moving rapidly across the sky. So what happened in 2009 was not just an aberration. We've seen a repeat of that in recent months. Not that you would have heard of that, because it was covered by the establishment and by the media, who don't want people to know of these strange things going on. And in the bottom left, we can see a Paleolithic or prehistoric diagram made, we don't know how long ago, and I don't even know where it's from. But they've seen, the people who drew that design and made that design saw a similar thing way back in time. Now, this is the Zetatalk explanation. As we explained, the swirl is a combination of a chemical reaction due to petrol and magnetic and electrical polarization from the charged tail of Nibiru. And it's important to remember that the tail of Nibiru is highly magnetized, highly charged, and it also contains a lot of petroleum or petrol-based matter. Next slide, please. Okay, we don't have the video for this, but there was, the last 2 years, there have been what are called sky blinks, which have actually been recorded on video. And this was from somewhere in the United States. The guy was out, I don't even know which state. The guy was out in nature somewhere taking a photograph, and all of a sudden, the sky above the trees where he was blinked. It was like a flash of light, and then it disappeared. Very quick, only a second or two, and he didn't know what was going on. This is the Zetatalk explanation. The approach of Nibiru also brings more and more petrol to the Earth, creating sky fire in the lower atmosphere. Now, with flashes of light, we are having petrol bursting into a burn in the upper atmosphere. Next slide. We first saw explosions in the upper atmosphere from 2019, and they're known scientifically as Lomonosov explosions, named after the Lomonosov satellite from which they were first photographed back in 2019. Okay, these were never before seen and unexplained by mankind scientists. They're called red sprites and blue jets, sort of a topical or whimsical name. And they had been associated with lightning and atmospheric turmoil below storms. However, the Lomonosov explosions are not associated with either lightning or storms. And once again, all this has been basically covered up by the media and the powers that be. Next slide, please. From February 2019, what is causing the Lomonosov explosions? We have detailed that lightning will pass from the Earth to Nibiru during the passage. That's when Nibiru passes the Earth, currently predicted for early 2027. causing what ancients call the thunderbolts of the gods, trumpeting due to splits in the upper atmosphere, clapping back together. These phenomena do not just suddenly emerge one day, but manifest gradually. We predicted last December, that would be 2018, that the thunderbolt trumpets would soon manifest after neutron bursts were recorded over Russia's Barentsburg Arctic Station. So they knew something was brewing back in December of 2018. And then we have the Lomonosov explosions happening a few months later, which are caught on film. But I doubt if any of you have actually heard of these before because it was all covered up. Next slide, please. Okay, this is from the last week's lecture, and these are bronze heads, and I had the same image up. These are bronze heads from the Sangjindui, or three-star mound excavation site in Sichuan, China. Now, the dating is quite interesting, circa 1700 to circa 1150 BC. If you remember from last week, the last passage of Nibiru near the Earth was somewhere between 1600 and 1650 BC. So it fits right in with the timeline which archaeologists have placed on these carvings, these sculptures. And you can see once again the elongated ears, a symbol of the strange sounds that were heard during the last passage of Nibiru at that point in time in China. Next slide, please. Okay, we're coming into the earlier part of this year, January 2025. Now, I wonder how many of you have heard about the toxic fog, which afflicted various persons in various parts of the United States. I think it was briefly mentioned in the media here, but not for very long. It was too weird, too strange. So they might have mentioned it briefly, but then moved on and ignored it. All right, just in time for the New Year celebrations, toxic fog arrives. This toxic fog stimulates a cold or flu. This is a dry fog, not wet, and has been occurring simultaneously all over the world. And you can see the various photographs from Florida and Texas on the right. So, especially in the United States, people in a number of states have been exposed to this dry fog, and they've actually seen it, photographed it. Zedetalk commented, "This fog consists of fine particles that look like snow when it arrives, but this is not snow, nor even wet. Per the Zetas, this is caused by the tail of Nibiru wafting over the earth." And once again, back to that deadly and strange tail of Nibiru, that very, very long tail, which contains, is highly magnetized and contains these particles. And as it sweeps over the earth, this part of the earth, that part of the earth, it does very strange things. Next slide, please. Mankind makes products from petrol whipped into a foam that a strong whiff of Nibiru's tail could cause white whipped foam to float down from the sky like snowflakes or float on a swimming pool should not be a surprise. This will occur regularly accompanied by hailstones. So that's a prediction for what is coming. Smoke is also part of the toxic fog because the petrol in the tail is regularly burning as it encounters oxygen. So we've got this very strange situation where the tail of Nibiru swoops over this or that region of the earth and creates this fog due to these petrol products. And occasionally the petrol explodes or ignites, so you get smoke and haze. So a very complex situation going on here. You can see the snow in PA, that's Pennsylvania. It looks and feels like styrofoam, but it's not. It's particles from the tail of Nibiru. Next slide, please. A heavy fog from the tail of Nibiru is also referenced in Muslim text. This occurs during the last weeks before the pole shift itself. This Muslim text refers to Nibiru as the beast, and they actually listed 4 or 5 different points. I haven't put them all here for the sake of brevity, but this is one of the major signs of the last day. And this is a quote: "The 40-day smoke or fog. Fog or smoke will cover the skies for 40 days. The non-believers will fall unconscious while Muslims will be ill or develop colds. The skies will then clear up." So that's a prediction from the Muslim world, which not many people in Australia would have heard of. Next slide, please. Okay, dramatic proof of Nibiru's wafting tail causing toxic fog and monstrous petrol blobs so heavy they leak the dripping petrol on those below have appeared in Los Angeles. And that was a bit after the devastating fires of January this year. All of this is, of course, ignored by the legacy media, who can offer no excuses. Well, we can't explain it, so we just won't report it. We'll cover it up. And the people who have seen it, well, they're either hallucinating or they don't know what they're saying. Next slide, please. Since the red dust in the tail is also charged, it charges what it falls upon too, as this video made in the desert shows. Now, these are screenshots from that particular video. And they show someone in the desert in America somewhere. It might be California, it might be Nevada, sort of doing this preparation. And you can see in the photograph on the right, the sand actually sticking to those magnets. Well, once again, this is due to the magnetic effect of the tail of Nibiru. Next slide, please. Okay, this is quite interesting and very strange, very strange. These photos are from February this year. In 2019, we described how the magnetic field lines of Earth are forming long cloud lines running between the magnetic north and south poles of Earth. Now, a member of the Zeta Talk followers group has captured a dramatic increase in these field lines coalescing around the Earth's magnetic field lines. They are parallel to each other and have increased in number by 1,000-fold. Why? That is a critical question. Why? Next slide, please. It's because Nibiru is a massive planet, 23 times the mass of Earth and 4 to 5 times the diameter of Earth. Needless to say, its magnetic field dominates when both the Earth and Nibiru are close to each other. The dominant field forces allegiance via magnetic resonance, so that the Earth attempts to align with Nibiru rather than align with the Sun. And the Sun is the dominant magnet in the solar system. But this struggle between magnetic field masters, i.e. Nibiru and the Sun, results in a zigzag pattern in the clouds in this 2025 capture. So what we're seeing is a very complex interrelationship connection link between the magnetic fields of Nibiru and the Sun and the Earth's magnetic field as well. And that's why we're seeing some of these very, very strange phenomena, which cannot be explained. I mean, the powers that be know what's going on, but they don't want the common person to know. Next slide, please. Okay, this is interesting as well. On February 23rd, both radar circles and a comprehensive geoelectric flash occurred over the entire southwest portion of the North American continent. Now, don't forget that the southwest portion, as per what I mentioned 2 weeks ago, is stretching or separating from the other parts of the America. It's moving to the west and to the south. We have explained that the electromagnetic particle family is beyond merely the electrons and magnetons assumed by man, but runs into the hundreds. So the Zetas are claiming we possess advanced knowledge, which humanity does not have, and we can explain what's going on, which the scientist in your world cannot explain. So, and there's a video apparently you can look to see this strange phenomena. Next slide, please. Okay, let's talk about the Nibiru cover-up. We briefly touched on this at the end of last week's session. Okay, the cover-up and denial about the existence of Nibiru was ordered by the predatory elitists, globalist cabal, or choose whatever word you wish, and their puppets in most governments around the world, the scientific and astronomical community, and of course the media. In some senses, that cover-up is even more significant than the effect of Nibiru itself. It is a huge, humongous factor in our current world and the attempts of the establishment to convince us, humanity, that Nibiru does not exist, and anyone who believes Nibiru is simply in La La Land or fantasy land or whatever. Next slide, please. Now, we mentioned this at the end of the lecture last week. This was an article from the Washington Post newspaper that appeared on the very last day of 1983. Now, the word Nibiru was not used in the article, but this was what American astronomers had located. Next slide. And here's part of what was printed in the article. A heavenly body, possibly as large as a giant planet Jupiter, possibly so close to Earth that it would be part of the solar system, has been found in the direction of the constellation Orion by an orbiting telescope. So mysterious is the object that astronomers do not know if it is a planet, a giant comet, a protostar that never got hot enough to ignite, a distant galaxy so young that it's still in the process of forming, or a galaxy shrouded in dust. So it was a bit of a mystery when it was first discovered in late 1983. Next slide. But astronomers soon calculated that the mysterious body was headed for planet Earth. It was, however, predicted that it would arrive some decades in the future. And the Zetatoc comment is, in the decade following the 1983 confirmation that Nibiru was inbound, the search for cover-up excuses for the anticipated Earth changes began. Per the Zetas, the official cover-up began with Reagan, good old Ronald Reagan, who ordered by secret executive order that there should be a cover-up over the alien presence and included a cover-up over the info about Nibiru too. Don't forget, this was a secret EO. He didn't tell anyone. He didn't broadcast it publicly. That EO was still in effect, from what I understand. Sadly, sad to say. But that's how things work in the US government. Next slide, please. The anticipated Earth changes included climatic changes and weather extremes. The authorities had to counter the info that Nibiru would be bringing those the closer it got to Earth. And thus, the global warming hoax was born. And this is from Zetatoc. The uproar over the supposed man-made carbon dioxide cause for global warming was promoted. Thatcher and Reagan were pals, and her embrace of the global warming theory coincided with the UN's involvement in the matter. So it was a collaboration between the US, the UK, and the United Nations. Al Gore subsequently jumped in to become the spokesperson, as is well known. An Inconvenient Truth, the movie was made 20 years ago, wherever. Does he know this is a lie? Per the Zetas, he absolutely does. So we got Reagan lying on the one hand from the Republicans, we got Gore from the Democrats lying on the other side. So it goes in US politics. And it's not that different here either, sad to say. Next slide, please. The curse of the electromagnetic pulses, these are EMPs. EMPs caused by the highly charged wafting tail of Nibiru has been in the news since 2009, when airplanes began experiencing total electrical failure. That's a reference to an Air France flight from France to Brazil and over the Atlantic Ocean basically disappeared. And that was according to an EMP, according to Zetatoc. Now, these are dismissed as pilot error or pilot suicide despite the evidence. Power outages and electrical fires have likewise been on the increase and are likewise excused. Anything but Nibiru is used as an excuse. And that was true then in 2018, it's still true now. In recent years, there's been a marked increase in EMPs all around the world. Now, there are two types of EMPs. Many of them come from beneath the Earth as the rock substrata there crash and grind against each other, and that's because of the tectonic plate movement, the massive tectonic plate movement, and the effects of fault lines in these various tectonic plates that we talked about a couple of weeks ago. That grinding and friction can cause EMPs to manifest, which in many cases shoot upwards into the atmosphere. Many recent airplane crashes or disasters in the world are caused by planes in flight being hit by EMPs. But some EMPs are caused by the highly magnetized tail of Nibiru wafting down and hitting the plane. EMPs can also shoot up from beneath the Earth because of grinding rock substrata, as mentioned in the previous paragraph. In some cases, flying planes have been hit by both types of EMPs in a pincher movement, which seriously damages or fries the electronic controls of the airplane. That often leads to a crash. Next slide. Or the disappearance of Malaysian Airlines flight MH370, and that's still a topic of current interest because they're still looking for it, trying to find it. The plane was hit by an EMP coming from beneath the Earth, which is intensified by the body of water over which the plane was then passing. The tail of Nibiru swooping down may also have been a factor. So this, we think, we're not sure, but we know, we think that MH370 was caught in a pincher movement. The tail of Nibiru coming down from above and an EMP shooting up from beneath the Earth, actually from the water, the substrata beneath the water over which it was flying. Okay, the result was the electronic controls were fried, but the plane continued to fly for some hours on automatic pilot before running out of fuel and crashing somewhere off the east coast of Africa, it is believed. Next slide. And here we see the planned route of the Malaysian Airlines flight from KL to Beijing. And in the little map on the bottom left corner, we can see where the flight actually disappeared, lost radar contact. And that was over, that had left the coast of Malaysia and was flying over water. But beneath the water, from the rock substrata below, an EMP was caused or created, which was intensified by the fact it went through the water and then it shot up, hit the plane. And we also think that the charged tail of Nibiru also hit the plane from above, and that was it. Sadly, goodbye MH370. Next slide, please. And just the next year, in March of 2015, we had the Germanwings plane crash. Yet another airplane crashes due to electromagnetic pulse. This time the crash was in the heart of Europe, in the foothills of the Alps. The Zedek explained that stretch zones are susceptible to attracting the charged tail of Planet X, and the Eurasian plate is under a stretch. So that's what happened to the Germanwings plane. It attracted the charged tail of Nibiru from above, but there was some sort of magnetic attraction from below, from the Alps. So the plane got zapped and disappeared. And sadly, I think all the passengers died, if I'm not mistaken. Very sad, very tragic. Next, yeah. Okay, let's come into this year, early this year, January 2025. And you may have heard about the medevac plane that crashed over Philadelphia. When major airlines started going down from EMP, we pointed out the nexus. They were most often going over a fault line or plate border, under duress and underwater. This was true of the Air France disappearance, the first one we know about from 2009, which was on the Africa plate border, and also MH370. And here's the really sad part, in my opinion. The airline industry, intent on continuing their profits, denies this. So Nibiru doesn't exist. It's all pilot error, or maybe occasionally there's a pilot suicide. I mean, who knows? But it's nothing to do with Nibiru. Note this Learjet in Philadelphia went down near a river and smack on the Ramapo fault line. And as mentioned 2 or 3 weeks ago, the Ramapo is twitching because the New Madrid, it's moving and shaking because the New Madrid fault line further to west is really under tremendous stress at this point in time. Okay, next slide, please. Now, you may remember that in February this year, there was a Delta plane which flipped over on approach while attempting to land at Toronto Airport in Canada. Fortunately, no one was killed in the accident. There were a few injuries, but I think everyone survived, thank God. According to Zetatalk, because Toronto is on the St. Lawrence Seaway, which is being stretched and stressed because of the general stretch or stress on the entire North American plate, and it hit the controls which control the balance of the plane, and it upset the controls. It hit one side of control, sort of one side of the balance factor, and I don't know the details of it, but one side of the balance factor was out of whack. So the thing flipped over upon its approach to Toronto Airport. And of course, you hear nothing about this in the media. They blame pilot error. They'll say it was snowing or whatever. Those are just excuses. Next slide, please. Okay, now you may remember that just, well, it'd be in March 2025, just a month and a half ago or whenever, a huge grid blackout hits most of Chile in South America. Okay, major power outages occurred in 2003 when Nibiru first entered the inner solar system. And now that Nibiru is in the process of completing its first 270-degree roll, which is a complex subject, I haven't gone into that because it's fairly technical, but it's again in close proximity to the Earth. The tail blowing out from the North Pole of Nibiru is again wafting the Earth. And as we've seen in previous slides, when the tail of Nibiru wafts on the Earth, you've got problems. What does this mean for mankind's grid, which suffers when the charged tail of Nibiru creates EMP episodes, both large and small? Extensive domino effects occur when transmission lines are assaulted and surge control shuts them down. We have warned that these times are coming and they have now arrived. And of course, the photos at the bottom, New York City in 2003, there was a blackout. And of course, the recent one in Chile in 2025. So it's happening all over the world. And guess what? It just happened a few days ago in Spain and Portugal. Next slide, please. Yeah, this was in the news, big news. This European blackout was not due to sabotage, nor solar activity, nor surge protectors shutting down the grid, nor a heat wave ramping up consumption. But you'll hear all of this coming from the establishment, from the media, because the establishment is still clinging to the Nibiru cover-up, and they want to cover this up pretty badly, desperately, in fact. We have repeatedly stressed that the electronic screech from ripping or compressed rock arcing to the charged tail of Nibiru magnified both fields, causing this type of EMP. And Chandra kindly sent me 2 emails just this morning. One was a story about some sort of power disruption in the Netherlands. I think 20,000 homes went down. It was near the border with Germany. And then there was something going on in the United Kingdom as well, which I think was probably linked to this incident because it was only a few days ago. So what we're seeing is these massive blackouts. And this, my friends, is a portent or omen of what is going to happen all over the world as we approach the last weeks and then the pole shift itself. So this is a warning. This is a warning to those nations in Europe and South America that this is coming. And those who understand this, which is hard because the Nibiru cover-up is so extensive, but those who understand about Nibiru and the effects it's having and the EMPs it's been creating will prepare as best they can. But this is a portent of what is to come, in my opinion. Next slide, please. Okay, it's related to the Africa roll, and we talked about this 2 weeks ago. The Africa roll will result in Gibraltar moving 125 miles further east and 50 miles further south. Now, that's a big movement for a rock as big as Gibraltar, and it has major implications for the Mediterranean Sea, for all of Europe, and the world, in fact. Stretch zones such as this do not record on earthquake maps because the stretch is silent. The Africa roll will finalize during the New Madrid rupture. And as mentioned a few weeks ago, we're right on the cusp of the New Madrid rupture. In fact, the information I got in meditation about a week ago or 10 days ago was it was likely to happen during the 3rd week of this month, May 2025. That would be somewhere between the 14th and 21st of this month. So if my information is anywhere near accurate, and I may have missed it, who knows, but let's see if it's anywhere near accurate, it's about to unfold. Now, when the rupture happens, it will bring distress not only to Gibraltar, but primarily to the US, where lands on either side of the New Madrid fault line will be screeching and arcing to the nearby Nibiru tail wafting about. And the last sentence is very somber. Martial law awaits. The prediction from Zetatalk, which is completely understandable, is that when the New Madrid ruptures, and that shouldn't be too far off as far as time goes, the government of the United States will declare martial law. That's understandable, perhaps. There will be huge chaos in the United States. And God only knows what the population will do. But martial law has been predicted for a long time by the Zetas and by Nancy Lear when the earth changes get really, really bad. And this will be a fairly bad earth change if and when it does happen. Next slide, please. Okay, this is a map of basically what's going on. You can see in the upper left-hand portion, the Africa roll. Africa is moving in a clockwise direction and also dropping. And when an entire tectonic plate containing an entire continent makes that move, you've got some major consequences all over Africa and especially the Mediterranean. And as mentioned, the Africa roll is basically crushing against the Sinai Peninsula between Israel and Egypt. And the Israeli government is aware of the predictions, and that's why they decided to take over Gaza and to ethnically cleanse Gaza of all Palestinians, which is actually what's going on. Let's be blunt about it. Let's be frank about it. It's genocide. It's ethnic cleansing in the name of, well, the safety of Israel. But anyway, that's a political issue. We're trying to concentrate on the earth changes per se. So let's go to the next slide. All right, thunderstorm asthma. Remember the thunderstorm asthma scare, November 2016? This is a quote from The Age, I think. At least 8,500 people treated due to this thunderstorm, many experiencing breathing problems. 4 in 10 people experienced, there had been 4 in 10 people experiencing thunderstorm asthma symptoms had not been diagnosed with asthma. So a very unusual weather occurrence, thunderstorm asthma is triggered by large storms, blah, 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 blah. That was the cover story, propaganda from the establishment. The real reason was the Nibiru tail once again. Normally, the dusty-tailed trash lands and lies on the ground where it can be collected during a dust storm. Will such storms continue? They will, in fact, increase and may become common in the near future in other countries with a southern exposure too. Next slide, please. Okay, we're briefly going to talk about the cover-up by the USGS, and they are responsible for recording location magnitude of earthquakes around the world. From Zetatalk, there has been a rise in earthquake magnitude and frequency since 2003 when Nibiru came to the inner solar system. But they've done their best to disguise that fact. By 2010, it was clear that USGS had a cover-up going, and by 2017, many of their techniques had been identified. So their advice, the Zeta advice, was just ignore the USGS lies and listen to the critters. As has long been noted by many ancient cultures, animals are sensitive to the threat of earthquakes. Pets leave homes, snakes and ants escape their homes in the ground, and domesticated animals such as Peking ducks become frantic. Next slide. And this is about electronic screech. It references the increased flow of electrons in rock due to the rock being compressed so that any air pockets are reduced. And then becomes just rock and water, which supports an increased flow of electrons. And this is how EMPs are produced, by the way. The Zetas have explained that this is a signal that domestic and wild critters use to alert them to a pending earthquake, and thus they flee the area. Next slide. So these animals, our friends, our pets, and also wild animals, are listening to the electronic screech caused by tension in the rock, which squeezes out air pockets. The air pockets are insulation, preventing electricity from flowing. This can be detected on any radio in the vicinity as static. Next slide. So the Zetatalk is just listen to the critters. Don't worry about what the the latest lies coming from the USGS. Okay, this is a fairly, I would say, confronting, challenging, for some even horrific depiction of the Earth after the pole shift. It shows from the perspective of the South Pole, which is predicted to be somewhere south of Sri Lanka, and looking north, and you can see the continent of Africa sort of turned on its side, and the western, what is currently the western edge of Africa, is on the new equator. So it's an Earth which really is significantly quite different from what we see now. We see to the east of that in Europe, we see the edge of Spain, whether it be Portugal and part of Spain, also very near the equator. So a really dramatic rearrangement of geography as we know it now. Next slide, please. This is a view from the new North Pole of the Earth, according to Zetatalk. And the North Pole, the new North Pole, will be just off the bump where Brazil bumps into or juts into the Atlantic Ocean. So a rather dramatic rearrangement of geography, of the Earth's geography that we've known for the past decades, centuries, and even millennia. Next slide, please. Okay, now you've got some basic facts about Nibiru, its approach, how much of an effect it's already having, and what the predictions are for the future. Now it's up to you to decide whether you believe much or some of that, or whether you choose to dismiss the entire matter as fantasy, which is what the establishment, the powers that be, want you to think. Now that's your choice, and no one can deny you your choice or your right to freedom of thought. No one. It's your God-given right. If you reckon there's some truth in the matters that have been discussed in this lecture and other ones, I would highly advise you to prepare for what is to come as best as you can. Next slide. First and foremost, I mentioned this at the very end of the talk last week. Keep up the personal spiritual practice that you find most suitable for you and the most inspiring. That's very, very important. Those who have found their spiritual center, however that is expressed and however they understand it, and different strokes for different folks, as we know, those people who have found their spiritual center will be the ones who can best survive what is coming and manage to keep their sanity. Next slide. Now, just last month, a few weeks ago, actually 2 weeks ago, the Zetas predicted that 43% of the pole shift survivors will be insane to some degree or the other, at least temporarily. Now, that is a huge chunk. That's a big figure. Depression over what has been lost will be a major part of this. A second factor is the global nature of the cataclysm, so that rescue from others is no longer available. And a third factor, of course, is people who believed the establishment, they believe the government, they believe the media, that all this talk about Nibiru and this crazy woman from Wisconsin who claims to channel, information from aliens, all that's rubbish. They will suddenly and shockingly find out that they have the media, the establishment, has been lying to them about all this for not just years, but decades. And that's going to be a big shock. All of this leads to post-traumatic stress disorder. And sadly, because of the success of the Nibiru cover-up among the majority of the population on Earth, we can expect a lot of that. 43% of the population with PTSD, according to the Zeta Talk prediction. God only knows if that figure is correct or not. I suppose we'll see. Next slide, please. Okay, I also highly advise you consider putting together a 3 to 6 month food supply. Now, that can be done if you have the money. And fortunately, we still have food available in this country. We're very blessed in that respect. Next slide, please. It's also important to learn how to garden, to grow veggies or fruit if you have the space. There's a lot to learn, should be learned about all that. And there's no time that's too soon or too late to start learning about gardening if you haven't already tried it. And if you don't have space for a normal garden, you can grow veggies in pots with soil. So you can do your bit, however small it might be, to prepare for what is to come. That's if you believe there's some truth or a lot of truth in any of what I've covered in this lecture and others. If you don't believe it, you think it's just fantasy, that's your free will, and you're welcome to your opinion. Next slide, please. Okay, start your own seed bank. The number of companies here in Australia that supply good seeds, I won't go into the Zeta Talk comments, fairly self-explanatory. Next slide, please. Okay, please note, this is very, very important, that if the Zeta Talk predictions about a pole shift in the near future come to pass, that will basically mean the end of our technology-based civilization. Now, that's a very confronting or challenging or even terrifying thought to consider. We all are based upon technology to some extent or the other. I mean, the very fact we're having the Zoom meeting is a result of very advanced digital technology in the world. But in the world of after the pole shift, that technology will no longer exist, according to the Zeta Talk. So you have to prepare yourself for big changes if you believe that a pole shift is coming. Next slide, please. Okay. Now, those who can provide their own energy through solar power systems or wind will be able to keep powering the electrical devices which we use every day and take for granted. Now, I highly recommend, if you have the money, to install solar power or wind power on homes. Because once again, think back to what happened in Chile in March and what happened in Portugal and Spain just a few days ago. So this is coming to a country near you, my friends. That's my strong belief. And you have to be prepared if you believe that that is the truth of the matter, the reality of the matter, and that one day in the not that distant future, we are going to be, the electricity grid in this country and all others is basically going to go down. It's going to poop out. So in that case, you have to prepare for what is to come if you believe that this is a likelihood. Next slide, please. Preparation is the key. Those who prepared before and after the pole shift will have a relatively good chance of survival. But those who choose to trust the powers that be be they governments, the mainstream media, scientists, et cetera, will be shocked to learn that they've been massively betrayed by those authorities. Next slide, please. All right, now we're going to talk briefly about a very controversial matter, namely that many political leaders and some high-profile individuals have actually been replaced with body doubles or lookalikes. And that's a whole subject in itself. I could speak for an hour or two just on that topic alone, but we'll focus on what happened to Pope Francis the other day. Well, last week it was, when he died. In most cases, the originals have been executed in secret, then replaced with a body double. And that's what happened to Pope Francis, according to Zetatalk. This is a quote from Zetatalk. Not everyone loved Pope Francis. If the Trump administration is struggling to rid the world of the deep state, the Vatican has a deep church wanting to dictate to the Pope. Francis was nervous about having the ring on his finger removed, as then he could be vulnerable to assassination. According to Zetas, Pope Francis was murdered in his bath in 2020. It would be late April, actually, or early May, we think late April, when he had taken his ring off. Archbishop Carlo Maria Vigano agrees, and if you haven't heard of Cardinal Vigano or Archbishop Vigano, try to look some of his comments on the internet, some of his videos. He is really spot on commentator, and I really respect what he has to say. He's really, 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 really good. He's also been branded a heretic by the Catholic Church, but what else is new? Next slide, please. Okay, on the left, these 5 photos was the real Pope Francis prior to his murder assassination in late April of 2020, or perhaps early May. The body double, the look-alike, 3 photos on the right. Now, it's not a bad body double. It's not a bad look-alike. Of course, because they had to fool millions of people, especially the 1.3 billion Catholics in today's world, that things were just normal and nothing happened to the Pope. He's doing fine, thank you very much. It's interesting, if you look at the nose, you see the eyes are kind of similar, the forehead is kind of similar. There's a little bit of difference in the chin, but the nose is the giveaway. In the real Pope Francis' nose, it's a little bit broader at the end, the tip of it. In the body double, it's a little bit more narrow. So very, very subtle difference, but close enough to fool billions of people that Francis was actually, the Francis who died last week was actually the real Pope. Sorry, according to Zetatalk, he was not. Next slide, please. The Pope Francis, who has recently been pronounced deceased, as a double, replaced in 2020. Now, the original Pope was worried about an assassination in 2014, and he became increasingly paranoid about this possibility in 2020, which he well should have. He was at odds with the Vatican. In particular, Francis had a penchant for speaking from the heart with compassion for the common man. This made the Vatican fearful that he would blurt out the truth about Nibiru's pending passage. The church hides many secrets, from the extent of pedophilia, and we know a lot about that already, to the third secret of Fatima. The third secret of Fatima. If you don't know about that secret, I can't go into it now. Look on the internet. You'll find a lot of good information about that. They want that secret covered up. So they considered the original Pope Francis to be a threat. Next slide, please. Okay, the man chosen to replace the real Pope Francis had lung problems, and the Easter 2025 death was a natural outcome of that. St. Malachi's prophecy of the popes, now if you don't know about that, look it up on the internet, very, very interesting stuff, has proven remarkably accurate, and given the pace of plate movements, the Vatican will be busy trying to move the church to a safer location. Basically, one of the parts of the third secret of Fatima states that the city of 7 hills, and that's Rome, of course, will be destroyed, and the Catholic Church along with it. That's a prediction. Now, next slide. This is the last slide. Yeah, okay, here we go. Well, we've got a few minutes for comments or questions.